Our history is full of lost voices, people whose ideas and beliefs, fears and hopes are absent from official records. In the Voices of History series, contemporary writers from TNT combine research and imagination to bring these individuals to life in fiction and poems. In 1888, the London Illustrated News published a highly detailed sketch by artist Melton Prior of Carnival in downtown Port of Spain, full of masqueraders and onlookers. Today, it's famous as one of the earliest surviving images of Trinidad Carnival. Were the people depicted by Prior real or imagined? What can this sketch by a visiting Englishman tell us about Trinidad in the late 19th century? Writer Lisa Allen-Agostini imagines the story of two of the figures in this well-known image. Part of the NGC Bocas Lit Fest's 2022 Season of Independence, celebrating Trinidad and Tobago's 60th anniversary as an independent nation.
The air is clangorous with the shaking of shacks and the pounding of bamboo on the ground. Matador women chant Cariso to the beat. They're too far away for the Reverend William Michael White to make out the words as he hurries through Port of Spain. It's 3 in the afternoon on Shrove Tuesday, 1888, and he's on his way to catch the day's last tramcar to Belmont. He keenly regrets spending the morning with the visitor at the vestry. Now he is late to see the widow Burnett. How could I have forgotten what it is like? He asks himself over and over as he wades through the crowd. Under the street's effluent, he smells grease paint, rum, crocus bags, and perspiration. The elaborately costumed celebrants each perform peculiar gestures familiar to him. He's known these forms of masquerade since he was himself one of the light-skinned children, pressing their faces to the wrought iron bars of the balconies over his head. As a boy, he would hide from mass behind his mother's skirts, particularly terrified of the chained, half-naked devils and imps slathered in thick black grease. When his mother brought him to Port of Spain for Carnival back then, he was never allowed to be this close to their roaring and keening like beasts from hell as they prowled and clawed the ground with their toes. Behind the Jab Molassie entourage comes the procession of a complete regency court in the finest aristocratic regalia. The king, the queen, and a range of nobility, all masked, mince down the road, waving to the crowd of onlookers. Overhead, they cackle. He thinks it ironic that the court was meant to mock the very people who now mock it. A busty figure in a silk gown and frilled satin bonnet pushes through the courtiers towards him. Michel? Though his eyes apprehend a buxom female, it's a man's voice he hears, calling his childhood name. There's a pretty wand in the hand that reaches for him, but that hand is rough and calloused and has been burnt by a forge. Moses? Eyes twinkle beneath the reveler's mask. But here's no place for a conversation. Under the rhythmic cacophony, William can't make out Moses's words, muffled as they are by papier-mâché. Moses waves the wand to indicate that they should duck into the nearby cross street to escape the din. After throwing an anxious glance at the clock over the watchmaker's shop door on the other side of the street, William obliges. He follows Moses, just as he used to when they were boys. He finds his steps falling into the rhythm of the bamboo's beat. Tottering out of the crowded procession in his high-heeled lady's boots, Moses takes off his mask. Underneath it, he's in whiteface, ghastly pale grease paint covering his coffee-brown features. As they embrace, he shouts, "Cousin! Cousin moi!" "Shh!" William hisses. He smells rum on the other man's breath. He quickly looks around. Though the streets deserted, he chides sotto voce. Pep bouchou, songe bien, c'est yon sigwe. Sigwe? Ah, oui, cousin sigwe man. Moses' stage whisper is slurred and he has a sloppy grin on his painted face. He reaches for a bulging pouch hanging from his side and shows William a cloth doll nestled in it. In English he adds, "Don't worry, if anybody see we, I go pull out the baby and beg for cock tax. Nobody go know nothing." Digging deeper in the bag, Moses fishes out a wineskin and offers his cousin a draught of liquor. With a shake of his head, William demurs and Moses responds, "Ah, only communion wine for you now, cousin moi. You're too good for Trinidad rum. This come from home, we? Your brother make this." William gives in. He opens his mouth and his cousin squirts in a generous mouthful of the warm, reddish gold liquid. William grimaces as he swallows and Moses howls with laughter. "You get too soft for rum, Michel? What they do you in England? We used to lash this in the shed. Epichive, pas oublier." William chuckles, still looking around nervously at the empty street. "You playing mass still, Moses? I thought you get too old for that now." "Never. But I nearly dead in the band last year, we? Samuel bust my head, the scamp. You remember Samuel? From boys' school?" He looks fondly at William. "You remember? Before they sent you to college. Avant ou Vinny Blanc." William smiles awkwardly and shakes his head. He looks up at the cathedral's clock tower. It's well past 3 now and he'll soon miss the last train. "I don't remember Samuel, but..." Moses, drunk enough to forgive him, slaps his back. "It was a long time ago, cousin." He takes another swig of rum before speaking again. "How was Oxford, man? Up till last week, I tell your brother, you must be still in England. Or them send you back Barbados to marry the white woman you write and tell me about in your letter. How's she name again?" "Daphne," William says, suppressing a shudder. "No, I came back to Trinidad last month. Listen, Moses, Moses pulls back and squints at William as though his vision is blurred. "You here since last month? And you never go and look for Tanti Bernice, your brother, nobody?" William blushes. He fiddles with his hat brim. The sun is fiercely hot and he's sweating in all the black wool he has to wear. "They put me straight to work at the cathedral." The music is louder now. The matador women are closer. William has to speak over the beat and the chanting women who echo their lead chantuel in patois. "Who is the stranger? The stranger go dead. Who is we champion? We champion is strong. Who is we champion? Is the pocket knife. You can't beat him. You are a puppet." Moses peers behind him at Frederick Street and brushes aside William's apologies. "Don't mind that. Listen, the band passing. I dey by the port. I have a little farrier shop in between some stevedore work. When to come and look for you in the cathedral, cousin?" On the next pavement, a white couple passes. She in a sunbonnet and he in a cork hat. Tourists, William thinks, as the local English shun the black people's mass and the white French Creoles watch it from afar, if at all. Moses abruptly begins to simper and shriek in falsetto. "Paye pouti bébé ah! Paye! Oui, si ti bébé ou papa!" The wineskin disappears and he makes a show of cradling the ugly infant in one hand while importuning William with the other. "Ou ka fè ti bébé, ou ni pou paye pou ti bébé ah!" William, red-faced now between the heat of the sun and his blistering embarrassment, reaches into the breast pocket of his coat. All he has is his tram fare, but he gives it to Moses, who, with exaggerated care, pushes the money into his bulging, padded bosom. Satisfied, Moses winks at him and waddles away, swishing his skirts and holding aloft the baby doll like a trophy. Allez, Ishmwe! He vanishes into the band, still pouring down Frederick Street. The couple is gone. William, alone on Queen Street, is a block from the cathedral. He turns his back to the hectic noise and movement and walks home. 5 months later, His Grace, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Edward White Benson, slides a finger under the wax seal on the envelope which his visitor has pressed into his hands. The messenger, a priest by his attire, sits opposite the Archbishop in front of the living room fire. Outside it rains steadily, making the London summer evening chill and dreary. Marked private and confidential, the envelope contains a report a scant 2 pages long. The heading of the first page reads, Inquiry into the Melton Prior illustration of Trinidad Carnival, 1888. Amongst the papers is the drawing in question, a painstakingly detailed tableau in the May 5th issue of the Illustrated London News. It shows cavorting Negroes in various costumes overtaking a commercial street in a tropical idyll. Some of the players appear nearly naked, in pantaloons as short as loincloths, and with the horns and tails of the imps they portray curling around their bodies. Some are clearly men, dressed in women's apparel, their muscular limbs and rugged necks bulging from courtly ladies' gowns and caps. On a pavement amidst the revelers is a priest, perfectly identifiable in his gloomy black coat and crisp white collar. Most of the other whites drawn in the scene observe the procession at a remove, standing in balconies above the street. Instead, this man looks almost serene under his wide-brimmed hat, even as a corseted black wearing a silk dress and satin bonnet seems to accost him in this Dionysian street parade. He withdraws from neither the scene nor the masquerader. The clergyman is the Reverend William Michael White, the report continues. Mr. White is the second son of the late Mr. Reginald White, formerly of Birmingham. White? From Birmingham? The Archbishop exclaims. Only a very distant relative of yours, Your Grace, the messenger hastens to interject. He and his Trinidad-born wife Bernice, née Guillaume, took over a modestly successful sugar plantation in... The Archbishop shushes his visitor and scans down the page. He stops when he spots the line. Ordained at Codrington College in Barbados, William Michael White continued his education at Oxford under Canon Pusey at Christ Church. Mr. White was appointed curate of the Holy Trinity Cathedral, Port of Spain, in January 1888. The Archbishop clears his throat in surprise. He is the curate of the cathedral. The other cleric nods reluctantly, regrettably. White had seemed a good fit, Your Grace. These sugar and cocoa planters in Trinidad are mostly from French families, you see. The island has only a thin veneer of English civility. They're all papists. Incense, Italian statuary, rituals. That, he points to the drawing, is no accident. The French started the carnival. White understands them. His mother is one of them. And what with Pusey's influence, well, I don't have to tell you. We thought it best to send him home rather than keep him here and run the risk of his being persecuted by the crown for ritualism. I see, the Archbishop muses aloud. He flips back to the drawing. In Prior's sketch, Reverend White looks straight at the artist, the only figure in the illustration to do so. There's nothing abashed in his gaze. The Archbishop peers into White's face a bit longer. He seems rather composed for a man of God amidst such a profane procession. The messenger shrugs, having no answer. The Archbishop ends his perusal of the report. Pointing to its final paragraph, he asks, And the woman? This widow Burnett of Belmont, a parishioner, black, a schoolmistress, I believe. Her children complained. Yes, I see that. Dying that night with unconfessed sins because White never arrived to her parlor. Bad luck. He returns to the picture and White's gaze. Perhaps he fitted there too well. My name is Lisa Allen-Agostini. I'm a writer, editor, and stand-up comedian from Trinidad and Tobago. My story is set in 1888 and is actually based on a real illustration, the real illustration that is discussed in the story. And because during that time in Trinidad's history, although English was the official language, most people spoke patois. I actually wanted to include patois in the dialogue. And because I don't speak patois, sadly, I had to ask for translation. So I'd like to thank the people who helped with that. And that's Dr. Joanne Ferreira and Namdi Hodge for helping me translate what was essentially, a baby doll speech and some other little bits of dialogue about someone who is passing for white in Trinidad Carnival.